Welcome back. Now, our next story is quite a moving one. A Johannesburg family became parents, and like all parents, you hope for the best for your newborns. Now, in the story of her book, our next guest is an author who started a journey of autism, but for her, it wasn't just one, but two of her children were diagnosed with autism. Illana Gershlowitz joins me now to tell us about this book, Fighting for My Sons, A Journey of Autism. Thanks so much for joining us. And it's not a subject we talk about too often, but there are a number of children that are being diagnosed.
You're absolutely correct. In fact, the number of children that are being diagnosed is staggering. According to the Center for Disease Control in America, every 1 in 59 children are now receiving an autism diagnosis. So it really is a global crisis. And I wrote the book because I wanted to share the heartbreak, the pain, the trauma that we went through, but then also the victories. And I also wanted to help parents with a roadmap and a way forward. And
I guess the autism has got such a broad spectrum, and this is part of the challenge, that if you're on one extreme to the other, sometimes it's easy to diagnose, and then most times it's very difficult.
You're absolutely correct. Autism has a very wide range. It's a spectrum diagnosis. You can have a child who can't speak at all, and then you can have a child who can speak but is struggling to fit into social settings. What they both have in common, the ends of the spectrum, is difficulty in communicating and really establishing and maintaining friendships. However, I want to just stress that autism can strip a child of the basic functionality to function as a human being. Can you imagine not being able to speak at all? So early intervention and diagnosis is very important, and we can already diagnose at a year.
All right, so we're going to talk about David in particular just now, but I suppose to start off by helping parents understand what are the things that they should look out for that might typically say to them, go and get this checked out.
Absolutely. I think that is so important, and parents who have a young child need to be aware of what the red flags are. And so my advice to parents is that don't listen to the grannies and the grandpas who say, he's a boy, he'll talk later, your cousin spoke only when he was 5 years old. Development needs to happen in a certain way, and if it's not, investigation is required.
All right, so let's talk about David, your first child, and your journey with him, because he was born with the extreme form of autism.
So actually, he was born absolutely fine. We took home this precious little baby who we bonded with, and then at around 20 months, we lost him. The only way I could describe it really was that it was like a living death. All of us, one day we had our boy, and then within a week, he stopped making eye contact, he stopped responding to his name, and he lost all his vocal ability. In my book, Saving My Sons, I describe the journey and the road that we walked. But then I also discussed the treatments and solutions. And that's really the purpose of the book, for other parents to know that autism is a treatable medical illness.
So you started to have to explore and find out, and some of the things that you teach now. So what did you learn on this journey with your young son?
So what I learned is that children on the autism spectrum have underlying medical issues that are causing the autism symptoms.
Oh, I see.
We need to focus on their nutrition, on eliminating food allergies, on supporting their immune systems, and often reducing inflammation in the bowel and brain. You know, when my oldest David was diagnosed 15 years ago, the South African medical profession dismissed my idea of a possible gut-brain connection. But today, that is undeniable in autism. So really, treating the gut is going to help the brain for the autistic child.
All right, so, and I have to go through your book so quickly, unfortunately, but then there was a significant meeting that you had with Dr. Doreen Gran-Pierce.
Correct.
Yes.
Dr. Grandpichet helped us to access a teaching methodology called Applied Behavior Analysis. That is ABA. It's a very specific teaching methodology. In America, it's endorsed by the US Surgeon General, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and covered in 49 states under medical insurance. And once we enrolled David on her ABA program, we started to unlock his closed doors.
Right. So then you took these teachings, you came back, and you are now starting to think, I've got to get my kid into school, but you couldn't find the right place.
We were simply not prepared to give up on our son, and that really is my message to parents battling autism, battling ADHD, battling any kind of learning challenge. Don't give up. And we looked around at schools and I couldn't find the right education program for him. After meeting Doreen, we knew we had found gold.
Wow. So then, Star Academy, tell us how that got set up.
Once we met Doreen, we established the Star Academy that today is an affiliate of the American-based Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We've been established for 10 years, and we are servicing children on the autism spectrum, children with oppositional defiant disorder, with ADHD, a learning challenge, across the borders of South Africa, actually. We're working with kids even in Ghana, Zimbabwe, Johannesburg, Durban. And so really parents can have a lot of hope. It's never the end of the road. With the teaching methodology ABA and uncovering the things that are causing the child's autism, you don't need to give up on your dreams for your child.
So then you've got another diagnosis, a second child, and then there's a child that doesn't have. So this is a family thing that you have to deal with. You've got parents that have to manage children with autism, children that have got different levels of autism, and a child that doesn't, that's got siblings that do. Tell us about that family dynamic.
Yes. So my oldest son, David, who's now 17 years old, he still wrestles with autism. But like I said, we'll never give up on finding his cure. My second son is completely typical, and I always say that he escaped an autism diagnosis. And then my little one, my youngest one, Aaron, he was diagnosed at 17 months, and he completely recovered from autism.
Wow.
That means he has completely lost his diagnosis, and he no longer has an autism diagnosis. So now I have only one child with autism and two children who escaped or recovered from autism. Just to get back to the family dynamic, parents of children who are going through this, they need family members to raise them up. They need a lot of support. As I'm sure you know, raising a typical child can be challenging. Now you're raising a child with special needs, so really it's physically and emotionally draining. But and it requires bravery and courage. And this is what we talk about in Saving My Sons. But as long as the parents can persevere and never give up, they will find the solutions.
So what I want to do is I want to put up something from your book called Debunking the Myths, and let's just take a look at what some of those myths are. I think it's coming up on the screen now. But take us through some of the myths typical of people's understanding of autism.
So the myths are that children with autism are all geniuses. There are very few of them that are actually the Rain Man autism that people refer to. And then people also have an idea that autistic children should be placed in special needs schools. This is absolutely not true at all. Autism need not be a lifelong disorder. Children with autism all differ. So if you have seen one individual with autism, you have seen one individual with autism.
It's not the same.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's so important that we design an individualized education plan for each individual child. Children with autism absolutely can form connections with other people and can establish and maintain friendships. They just need to be shown how and taught the skills. And children with autism can learn how to speak. Some will develop vocal speech, and others who struggle can be given an augmentative device through which they can communicate.
So one of the keys then for you is this ABA program, and this is what the Star Academy does, and that you've got academies around the country so that people can get help with their children. And I think I read that first 7 years is really key to this.
So yes, you're absolutely correct. Early intervention is key. The doctor, who is Dr. Lovas, who created ABA, already proved recovery from autism in 1987. So this is not a new idea, but the children do require intensive, individualized, one-on-one attention. And another reason for my book was to break down barriers to access that parents are experiencing, and it's very, very difficult for parents to access the right help.
Illana, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I think for any parent that is perhaps getting this diagnosis, that your story can be quite inspirational for them, that as like you've fought for your sons, it is treatable, and there is interventions that are available, and they mustn't give up on their kids.
Exactly. Autism means game on, not game over. My message to parents is put on your boxing gloves and fight for your child.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your story. Thank you. All right, so we're going to leave it there for the time being.